Hey, glad you're here. Pull up a chair. Or if you're driving, keep both hands on the wheel, but let's mentally sit down for a second. I want you to think about a door. Not just any door. Maybe the front door of a house you used to live in, or of the door to a room that holds a lot of memories. Think about the sound it makes when it closes. Some doors slam. You feel it in the floorboards. You know something just happened. But some doors are different. Hydraulic hinges, soft close mechanisms. You let go of the handle and it just meets the frame. A quiet click. It's closed, but nobody heard it happen. By the time you notice, you're already on the other side. I've been thinking about that sound lately, that soft click, because I think that's what hate sounds like in most of our lives. Not a slam, not a scream, just a quiet, intentional closing of a door. I was at a wedding a few years ago. Beautiful. White lilies, expensive champagne, that specific kind of lighting that makes everyone look like they've never had a bad day in their lives. There was this guy there, let's call him Mark. Mark was the life of the party. Funny, helping the caterers, hugging the groom. But I watched him when he thought no one was looking. He passed a specific table, a table where his ex-business partner was sitting, and his face didn't twist into a snarl. He didn't spit. He didn't even look angry. He just went blank. It was like a light switch flipped. 1 second, he's a vibrant, living human being. The next, he's a ghost. He walked past that table as if it were occupied by empty air. No hello, no glance, nothing. We usually think of hate as a scream, right? Red-faced shouting, picket signs, something violent and jagged. But watching Mark that night, I realized something that's been bothering me ever since. Hate isn't always a fire. Sometimes, hate is just a very, very cold room. Welcome to Take Me to Church. I'm Ebby. Today, we're talking about the version of hate that you and I probably carried into the room with us. The quiet kind. The justified kind. The kind that looks exactly like protecting your peace.
We have this habit, especially in our churches, of reserving the word hate for the monsters. We put it in a box labeled villains. If you don't want to physically harm someone, you tell yourself, "Oh, I don't hate them, I'm just done with them." But the heart is more creative than we give it credit for. It doesn't always need a flamethrower when a freezer will do the job just as well. Think about the word indifference. It literally means no difference. It's the moment you decide that another human being's existence, their pain, their joy, their salvation, makes no difference to you. Hate is a master of disguise. Sometimes it shows up wearing a suit called righteous indignation. Sometimes it wears a mask called setting healthy boundaries. Sometimes, and this is the one that gets me, it doesn't wear anything at all. It just goes cold. There's a line from Dorothy Sayers that has stuck with me for years. She said, "The only sin hell takes seriously is the one we refuse to admit." So, let's not do that today. Let's not pretend hate is something out there. Let's look at the quiet ways it moves in next door, unpacks its bags, and starts redecorating the spare room of our hearts. Let me tell you about a guy I used to know. Let's call him Sam. Sam had a friend. Good friend. They went through college together, were in each other's weddings, the whole deal. Then life happened. Sam started a business. Stressful, exhausting. His friend was going through his own stuff. The weekly calls became monthly texts. Then Sam's business hit a rough patch. He needed help. He needed advice. He needed a friend. So he reached out. A long text, vulnerable, laid it all out. And he waited. An hour, nothing. A day, nothing. A week, nothing. Sam would check his phone. He'd see his friend post on Instagram laughing at a restaurant. He'd see him active on WhatsApp. But the message just sat there. Delivered. Blue. Red? Probably. And in that silence, something started to grow. It wasn't anger at first. It was hurt. Then the hurt started looking for a reason. What did I do? He's ignoring me? After all those years? Fine. The hurt turned to interpretation. He was never really my friend. It was one-sided. And then the door started to close. Not with a slam. Sam didn't send a nasty message. He didn't confront him. He just stopped caring.
When his friend finally texted months later with a lame excuse, "Hey man, so sorry, life's been crazy, you know how it is," Sam looked at the message, felt nothing, and put his phone back in his pocket. He didn't reply. He called it moving on. He called it protecting his peace. But if you had asked him, "Do you hate him?" Sam would have laughed. Hate him? No, I just don't care about him anymore. That story hangs in the air because it's so familiar, and it's ancient. It reminds me of another story, much older. First family, first sons, Cain and Abel. Cain brings an offering to God, and for some reason, Abel's offering gets the nod. The text says God regarded Abel's offering, but not Cain's, and Cain's face fell. He got angry, dejected. Now watch what happens next. God comes to Cain, which is wild, right? God doesn't ignore him. He says, "Why are you angry? Why is your face down? If you do well, won't you be accepted? But sin is crouching at your door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it." God is saying, "Cain, look at the door. Something is out there. It wants in. Don't let it." But Cain doesn't talk to Abel. He doesn't process the hurt. He doesn't say, "Hey, I'm struggling with some envy here. Can we talk?" No, he just lets the hurt curdle. He lets it justify itself. It's not fair. I deserve better. He's the problem. And then Cain leads his brother out into the field, and he kills him. We read that story and think, "Whoa, Cain, that's extreme." But we skip the quiet part. We skip the miles of silent walking. We skip the field where nobody was watching. The murder didn't start in the field. It started with a fallen face and a quiet heart that decided indifference to God's warning was easier than dealing with the pain. Hate is the spiritual act of unneighboring someone. It's moving them from the category of someone God loves to the category of background noise. Before the rock hit Abel's head, Cain had already deleted Abel's humanity from his heart. He decided he was no longer responsible for the other. Am I my brother's keeper? That's the seed, that quiet question. Here's the thing we don't like to admit. Hate feels good. It feels powerful. When you hate someone, or even when you quietly resent them, you are placing yourself on a throne. You become the judge. You decide they are unworthy of your time, your smile, your prayers. Hate is the ultimate ego project. It says, "My hurt is more important than your humanity." But here's the second insight, the one that really gets me. Hate is rarely about the other person. If you look at Jesus' teaching, he connects hate to the heart, not the hands. He says if you're angry with your brother, you've already committed the act. Why? Because the kingdom of God isn't a legal system, it's an ecosystem. When you introduce the poison of indifference into your heart, it doesn't stay in the corner where you put that one person. It seeps. It colors how you see your spouse, how you see your neighbor, how you see God. It makes you brittle. You think you're keeping them in a cage, but you're the one sitting in the dark, holding the key, making sure they don't get out, which means you can't leave either. I knew a woman once who hadn't spoken to her sister in 15 years. 15 years! Over a disagreement about their mother's will. She told me, "Ebby, I don't hate her, I just don't have space for that kind of energy in my life." And she sounded so healthy saying it. It sounded like boundaries. It sounded like growth. But as we talked, I realized she knew everything her sister was doing. She knew her sister's kids had moved. She knew her sister had a health scare. She was watching from a distance, waiting for the universe to prove she'd been right all along. She wasn't free of her sister. She was chained to her sister by a grudge. That's the tragedy of hate. It's a full-time job that pays you in ash.
So who have you iced lately? Who have you decided is no longer your business? Whose pain makes no difference to you anymore? Maybe the first step isn't a big dramatic reconciliation. Maybe it's just admitting that the room has gotten a little cold.
There's one more story. A guy who had every right to hate, rejected by his hometown, betrayed by his closest friends, abandoned in his worst moment, lied about, beaten, nailed to a cross by people who mocked him. And from that cross, he looks at the crowd, the ones who put him there, and he says, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." That's not a slam. That's not a freeze. That's a door being held wide open. He didn't say, "Father, let me just protect my peace for a minute." He didn't say, "I'm eyeing them until they apologize." He acknowledged their humanity even when they were busy denying his. Jesus didn't just die to get us into heaven. He died to get the hell of hate out of us. He came to break the "am I my brother's keeper" cycle and replace it with something else, something that looks like a cross. I don't tell you that to make you feel guilty. I tell you that because it shows us what's possible. It shows us that the opposite of hate isn't just not hating. The opposite of hate is a heart that remains soft enough to be hurt again. So, here's my question, not for you to answer out loud, just to sit with as the music fades in. Think about that quiet door in your life, the one that closed with a soft click a long time ago. Is there someone on the other side? And is the peace you feel actually peace? Or is it just the silence of a room you've locked yourself in? Because the truth is, we are all Cain, and we are all Abel. But we don't have to stay in the field. A few seconds of silence. Thanks for sitting with me. I'll talk to you next time. Go in peace, or better yet, go in love.